Have you ever wondered why some elderly individuals seem to shy away from making new friends or socializing? What's truly behind their decision? In today's video, we'll explore 8 key reasons why some older adults choose solitude over social interaction, shared through the personal stories of elderly individuals who've lived through these challenges. From the fear of rejection to the comfort of familiar routines, we'll delve into the emotions and experiences that influence their choices. Stay tuned as we uncover why the elderly sometimes prefer their own company and discuss ways to break through their isolation. Fear of rejection story. Meet Mildred, a 72-year-old woman who, in her younger years, was the life of every party. She was always surrounded by friends, hosting gatherings, and meeting new people. But something changed a few years ago when she moved to a new neighborhood. Mildred was eager to make new friends and felt optimistic about building a sense of community. However, after several attempts to connect with her new neighbors, she was met with cold shoulders and lukewarm responses. One neighbor even ignored her invitation for coffee, while others seemed too busy to chat. "I just don't want to feel that hurt again," she admits, staring down at her hands in the quiet of her living room. "I thought they would be kind, but they weren't." Mildred's experience isn't unique. Many elderly individuals face the sting of rejection after years of socializing and forming relationships. They've spent a lifetime nurturing friendships, but sometimes those connections aren't reciprocated as they age. For Mildred, the pain of being shut out by people she thought she could trust left deep emotional scars. "I've been through too much in my life to put myself out there like that again," she says. "It's easier to stay to myself." The fear of rejection often weighs heavily on the elderly and to meeting. After countless experiences, both positive and painful, they've learned that reaching out doesn't always result in the connections they hope for. When rejection occurs, it can feel even more intense with the awareness that time is limited, and forming new relationships can seem more difficult. They may start questioning their worth, or wonder if they're still capable of meaningful bonds. As they age, many older adults become keenly aware of the friendships and relationships they've lost over the years, whether through death, relocation, or natural drifting apart. For someone like Mildred, the thought of opening up to others again feels like a risk she's no longer willing to take. The sting of rejection is no longer about the specific incident, but about the emotional burden of starting over in a world that feels increasingly disconnected. Additionally, many elderly people fear that rejection reflects their changing selves. Aging brings physical changes, memory lapses, and shifts in energy, all of which can make individuals feel self-conscious. The fear that others may not accept them or see them as a burden can drive them to shy away from socializing altogether. Mildred's reluctance to try again is not just about her neighbors. It's about the fear of being seen as irrelevant, unattractive, or unimportant in the eyes of others. However, the fear of rejection doesn't have to be a permanent barrier for Mildred and others like her. Understanding that rejection is a natural part of life and doesn't define their worth is crucial. While the pain of past experiences can be hard to overcome, small steps, like reaching out to a trusted individual or joining a familiar, can help rebuild confidence and remind them that they still have much to offer. It's important to reassure the elderly that there are people who will appreciate them for who they are, scars and all, and that the potential for meaningful connections is never completely closed off. Losing loved ones story. Frank, an 80-something widower, often spends his afternoons sitting by the window, reflecting on the life he once shared with his late wife, Helen. He smiles softly when he talks about her, but there's a quiet sadness in his eyes. "It's hard to open up to new people when the one person I loved is no longer here," he confesses, his voice tinged with both grief and acceptance. Frank and Helen spent over 50 years together, building a life full of memories, raising children, traveling, and growing old side by side. But since her passing 2 years ago, Frank has found it difficult to fill the void she left behind. Frank's hesitation to socialize is rooted in this deep sense of loss. Every time he meets someone new, he can't help but compare them to Helen. No one, he feels, could ever take her place. "I've had the love of my life," Frank says, shaking his head. "It's not the same with other people. Why try?" This sentiment isn't unique to Frank. Many elderly individuals experience a similar emotional withdrawal after losing a spouse or a close friend. The connection they once shared with a partner is irreplaceable, leaving them feeling emotionally isolated and unwilling to seek out new relationships. The death of a spouse or close friend often has a profound impact, particularly on the elderly. The bond that existed between them and their loved one was formed over years, and the loss feels like a piece of their identity has been ripped away. For someone like Frank, this emotional wound makes the idea of forming new connections seem overwhelming and unnecessary. Why invest in relationships when they know nothing could ever compare to what they had? Grief is a complicated process, and for the elderly, it can be even more complex. Many older adults feel that their time is limited, and that forming new bonds might not be worth the effort. Frank, for example, has no interest in opening his heart to someone new. "I've already loved deeply, what's the point in starting over?" he reflects. This mindset is common among those who've experienced significant losses. They feel like their capacity for love has been fulfilled, and it's difficult to imagine letting someone else in. Moreover, after the death of a spouse or close friend, some elderly individuals may also feel a sense of guilt for even considering new friendships. "How could I ever be happy with someone else when they're gone?" Frank asks himself. This feeling of betrayal toward the memory of a lost loved one can prevent elderly people from reaching out to others. They may feel like they're dishonoring the past by attempting to form new relationships, even if those relationships could bring them comfort and joy. But the truth is, grief doesn't have to mean the end of meaningful connection. While no one can replace a lost loved one, new relationships, whether friendships or companionships, can bring unexpected joy and healing. Frank's story, while filled with sorrow, also carries hope. His children encourage him to join social clubs or attend local events, not to replace Helen, but to enrich his life with new experiences. Slowly, he's beginning to understand that it's possible to build new connections that, while different, can still be meaningful and fulfilling. For the elderly, it's important to remember that opening up to others doesn't diminish the love they've already experienced. It simply allows them to continue sharing love in new and fulfilling ways. Health issues story Evelyn, a 70-year-old woman with arthritis, often finds herself sitting by the window, watching the world go by, while her friends gather for social events she once eagerly attended. "Going to a social event used to be exciting," she recalls with a wistful smile. "But now it's exhausting. I'd rather stay home and rest." Evelyn's arthritis has made even the simplest tasks, like getting dressed or walking up a flight of stairs, feel like monumental efforts. What once was a weekend tradition of meeting friends for coffee or attending community events has now turned into a quiet, solitary life at home. The thought of enduring the physical strain just to attend a social event no longer seems worth it. At one point, Evelyn loved dancing at family gatherings and attending neighborhood parties. She remembers her last birthday a few years ago when she could hardly wait to join in the celebration with friends and family. But that was before the pain in her joints became a constant companion. Now, she finds herself watching from the sidelines as others enjoy themselves. "It's not that I don't want to be there," Evelyn says softly. "It's just that my body doesn't let me anymore." She laughs, though the sadness in her eyes is unmistakable. The vibrant, active woman she once was now feels disconnected from the social life she once thrived in. For many elderly individuals like Evelyn, physical limitations such as chronic pain, illness, or fatigue play a significant role in their decision to withdraw from social activities. As people age, they often face health challenges that make even the most basic social engagements feel daunting. Whether it's arthritis, heart conditions, or respiratory problems, these physical barriers can leave seniors feeling physically drained, emotionally frustrated, and ultimately reluctant to participate in the activities they once enjoyed. The toll of chronic pain can be especially isolating for Evelyn. The simple act of getting ready for a social outing has become a painful challenge. "I used to be the first one out the door," she says, looking at an old photograph of herself in a dancing dress. "Now I'm the one who has to cancel plans because my legs just don't work the way they used to." The feeling of missing out on life's pleasures due to physical limitations can lead the elderly to retreat into the comfort of their homes, where they feel safe from the discomfort and embarrassment of struggling in public. The fatigue that often accompanies chronic health issues can also discourage the elderly from socializing. After a long day of managing pain or navigating the physical demands of their body, the thought of adding social events to their to-do list can feel overwhelming. Some days I just don't have the energy, Evelyn admits. Even a trip to the grocery store can feel like a marathon when every task requires effort. The idea of putting on a brave face and socializing seems like an insurmountable challenge, leading many to choose rest over social interaction. However, it's important to note that while health issues can make socializing more difficult, they don't have to lead to complete isolation. Support from loved ones and accommodations like virtual meetings, smaller gatherings, or even adjusted schedules can help seniors stay connected without overwhelming them. For Evelyn, the encouragement from her daughter to try smaller, more intimate get-togethers has made a difference. It's not the same as before, she says, but it's better than nothing, or she. With a little flexibility and understanding, even those with significant health challenges can find ways to maintain social ties and avoid feeling left out. Ultimately, the decision to withdraw due to health issues is not a reflection of desire but necessity. For elderly individuals like Evelyn, it's not about choosing to isolate themselves, but about responding to the demands their body places on them. By acknowledging their limitations and finding alternative ways to engage, the elderly can still enjoy meaningful social connections without compromising their well-being. It's important for society to recognize the physical challenges older adults face and offer support that allows them to stay connected, even if the form of connection looks a little different than it did in their younger years. Not relating to younger people's story, Lenny, an 80-year-old retiree, sits in his favorite armchair, glancing at the invitation to a family gathering on the coffee table. His children and grandchildren had sent it over with excitement, encouraging him to join. But when Lenny thinks about the event, a feeling of unease creeps in. The young ones are always talking about things I don't understand. New technology, trends. I just don't fit in, he admits with a sigh. Though he loves his family dearly, the thought of spending hours at the gathering fills him with dread. He's afraid that the conversation will revolve around topics he feels disconnected from, and he'll only feel more isolated. When Lenny does attend family events, he often finds himself sitting quietly while others chat about the latest gadgets, social media trends, or pop culture references. They talk about things like TikTok or the newest smartphone, and I just can't keep up, he says, shaking his head. Lenny tries to contribute, but he feels like his voice is drowned out by the younger generation's enthusiasm for things he doesn't understand. It's not that I don't want to be part of it, but I feel like I'm living in a different world. Lenny's disconnection from younger family members makes him feel like an outsider in his own family, and this often discourages him from attending gatherings or even trying to engage. The generation gap can make it difficult for older adults like Lenny to relate to younger people, especially when the younger generation is immersed in technology and trends that seem foreign or irrelevant to them. As time passes, cultural shifts, technological advancements, and changing social norms can create a sense of alienation for elderly individuals who feel left behind. They may struggle to connect with younger people because they don't share the same references, experiences, or interests. For Lenny, his inability to understand the latest technological advancements or pop culture trends makes him feel disconnected from his family, even though he wants to be a part of their lives. For many seniors, the rapid pace of change can be overwhelming. Unlike younger generations, who grow up with technology integrated into their daily lives, older individuals like Lenny often find themselves struggling to keep up. I can barely work my smartphone, Lenny confesses, laughing. The kids think it's funny, but I just don't get it. This gap in knowledge and understanding can lead to feelings of inadequacy and frustration, which may cause older individuals to withdraw from socializing with younger people. The fear of not being able to relate or contribute to conversations can make them feel invisible or, worse, irrelevant. The generation gap isn't just about technology or trends. It's also about different life stages and experiences. Younger people may be focused on career growth, starting families, or navigating the fast-paced world, while older individuals are often reflecting on past achievements, family milestones, or enjoying retirement. The shared experiences that once connected generations can seem few and far between. For Lenny, the things he cares about, like gardening or reminiscing about the past, are often brushed aside in favor of the younger generation's interests. This lack of common ground can make older individuals feel like they no longer have a place in conversations, further isolating them. Although the generation gap can create barriers, it's important to remember that connection is still possible. Lenny's story illustrates that while it may take effort, there are ways to bridge the divide. I try to learn a little about what they're talking about, Lenny admits, but mostly I just listen. I enjoy seeing their excitement, even if I don't fully understand it. Encouraging cross-generational communication, where both sides show interest and understanding, can help break down the walls that the generation gap creates. Younger people can learn to appreciate the wisdom and life experience of their older relatives, while older individuals can feel valued for their perspectives and contributions, even if they don't know the latest trends. Ultimately, while the generation gap may initially seem like an obstacle, it can also be an opportunity for growth and connection. For Lenny, simply being present at family gatherings, even if he feels out of place, shows that he values his loved ones and though he may not always relate to the newest trends, his life experiences offer invaluable insights that younger generations can benefit from. In fact, sharing stories from the past and finding ways to relate on a deeper level, outside of trends and technology, can strengthen the bonds between generations. Previous social exhaustion story Nancy, a 76-year-old retired teacher, spent much of her younger years surrounded by people, attending faculty meetings, hosting dinner parties, and attending community events. But now, as she sits in her favorite armchair knitting quietly, she reflects on how different her life feels. "I'm done with all the mingling," she says with a wistful smile. "I've had my share. Now I crave quiet." Nancy fondly remembers the bustling years filled with social engagements, but today, the thought of attending another crowded event feels overwhelming. "I've lived that chapter of my life. Now I just want peace and solitude." When Nancy retired from teaching, the invitations for social gatherings kept pouring in. Friends inviting her to book clubs, neighbors organizing potlucks, and family members scheduling reunions. In her younger years, she was always the first to say yes, always eager to connect and share stories. But as the years passed, Nancy began to feel like she had exhausted her social reserves. "I used to be the life of the party," she recalls with a laugh. "But after so many years of interacting, I found I didn't have the energy for it anymore." Instead of looking forward to the next invitation, Nancy found herself declining, opting for quiet evenings at home where she could unwind without the pressure of social expectations. For many older individuals, years of socializing can take a toll, leading to what some might call social exhaustion. After decades of being actively involved in social events and gatherings, some elderly people, like Nancy, find that they no longer have the desire or energy for constant interaction. The constant mingling, small talk, and event planning that once felt exciting may eventually begin to feel draining. Nancy's shift from a vibrant social life to a quieter, more reflective existence highlights how, for some, the urge to socialize diminishes as they age. Instead, they yearn for the peace and simplicity that comes with a slower, less crowded life. Social exhaustion isn't just about physical fatigue, it's also about emotional wear. Nancy spent years listening to others, giving advice, and being the supportive friend or teacher everyone relied on. After so much giving, the emotional reserves can start to feel depleted. Now Nancy feels that her energy is better spent in solitude, where she can recharge and reflect. She's no longer interested in being the center of attention or attending events where she's expected to engage in superficial conversations. Instead, her need for inner peace and personal time outweighs the desire for more external social stimulation. Nancy's story also illustrates how our understanding of socializing evolves over time. When she was younger, she found joy in the hustle and bustle of social gatherings, but as she grew older, her priorities shifted. The need for genuine connection became more important than the sheer quantity of interactions. "I don't need a big crowd to feel fulfilled," she says. "A good book, a cup of tea, and a peaceful evening are enough for me now." This transition is common for many elderly people who, after years of fulfilling social obligations, decide to focus on personal well-being and reflection. Instead, socializing becomes less about obligation and more about meaningful, intimate interactions, if any at all. For those experiencing social exhaustion, like Nancy, it's essential for loved ones to understand and respect the desire for solitude. While it might feel like they're withdrawing, the reality is that they're simply honoring their own needs for rest and peace. This doesn't mean that they don't appreciate others or value relationships. It just means that they've reached a point where the constant cycle of socializing no longer brings them the same joy it once did. As Nancy wisely says, "I've had enough of the noise. Now I find joy in the silence." Learning to embrace this shift in perspective and respecting the boundaries set by elderly individuals can lead to a more fulfilling and peaceful later life, where quiet moments are as valued as loud gatherings. Ultimately, Nancy's story is a reminder that it's okay for elderly individuals to step back from the social scene when they've reached their limit. It's a natural part of aging and reflects a shift in priorities, rather than a sign of loneliness or withdrawal. For many older adults, the craving for quiet and peace is simply a reflection of their journey, a desire for introspection and self-care after years of being there for others. As society becomes more aware of the emotional and physical needs of the elderly, we can better support them in finding the right balance between solitude and social interaction, respecting their wishes while offering companionship when they desire it. Understood. I'll remove all extra headings and keep the format as you requested, focusing only on the loss of confidence story with no additional headings. Here's the refined script. Blank, _ blank, loss of confidence. Tom, 83, was once known for his outgoing nature and charisma. As a young man, he was always the life of the party, easily making friends and leading social gatherings with a quick joke or a lively story. But now, after battling several health issues, Tom has become a shell of the man he once was. "I don't feel like the same man I once was," he admits quietly. "Oh, I don't want people to see me like this." His body no longer feels strong, and his mind doesn't work the way it used to. This change has left Tom feeling self-conscious and unsure of himself. The once confident man now hesitates before going out, dreading the idea of being seen in a vulnerable state by friends or family. Tom remembers a time when he could walk briskly, join in on impromptu dances at family gatherings, and talk for hours without feeling drained. But now, with reduced mobility and mental clarity, he finds it difficult to engage in conversations or keep up with others. "I used to be so sharp, quick-witted," he says with a sigh. "Now I forget things easily, and I don't have the energy to keep up with the young ones." As a result, Tom has gradually isolated himself, choosing to stay home rather than attend social events or gatherings. The fear of being judged or pitied by others has overtaken his desire to socialize, and his once vibrant personality has dimmed under the weight of his self-doubt. The loss of physical or mental ability can significantly impact an elderly person's self-esteem and confidence. For Tom, the decline in his health has made him feel disconnected from his previous self. He no longer sees himself as capable or worthy of the same social interactions he once enjoyed. As his body and mind have changed, so has his perception of his value in social settings. What was once natural and easy, being the center of attention, making new friends, and enjoying lively social gatherings, can become daunting when one's abilities are no longer the same. This loss of confidence isn't just about physical appearance, it's also about feeling mentally sharp and capable. The fear of losing one's mental faculties can make socializing feel even more difficult. As Tom explains, "I don't want people to see me as forgetful or weak." The thought of not being able to contribute meaningfully to a conversation or remembering names and events can deter elderly individuals from engaging in social situations. The pressure of trying to keep up with others can be overwhelming, leading them to withdraw. Socializing becomes more of a burden than a joy, and the fear of being seen as less than what they once were weighs heavily on their desire to connect. For many elderly people, the loss of confidence can also lead to a sense of inadequacy. Tom no longer feels like he fits into the world he once navigated so easily. "I used to be the guy who everyone could rely on," he says with a sense of longing. "Now I'm not sure I'm good for anything." This feeling of worthlessness is common among the elderly, as they struggle to adjust to the limitations that come with aging. When they can no longer perform tasks or be as active as they once were, they might feel like they have nothing to offer in social settings, making them hesitant to engage with others. The fear of judgment and rejection can make isolation seem like the safer option. The longer an elderly person stays away from social interactions, the more daunting the prospect of reconnecting can become. Tom admits, "The longer I stay home, the more I convince myself that no one would want to be around me anymore." This is a tragic reality for many older adults who feel forgotten or irrelevant as their health declines. However, what they often fail to realize is that the connections they once had still value them, perhaps even more so because of their life experience and wisdom. Tom's story is a reminder that confidence is deeply tied to how we see ourselves. For elderly individuals, it's not just about how others perceive them, but also how they perceive themselves. A loss of physical or mental ability can make them feel invisible or inadequate. However, with support, understanding, and encouragement from loved ones, it's possible to help restore that confidence and remind them of their worth. It's important for families and friends to create spaces where elderly individuals feel safe, valued, and accepted, regardless of their physical or mental limitations. By focusing on what they can still contribute and celebrating their life experiences, we can help rebuild their confidence and encourage them to re-engage with the world around them.